Welcome to another edition of Cybersecurity Divas Leadership Moments with Lendrell Downs. Today's edition is brought to you by Fortify Experts, a cybersecurity search and consulting firm that helps companies build high-performing security and risk teams. Now here's Lynn.
Hello, my name is Lendrell Downs. I'm with Cybersecurity Divas, and I have Octavia Howell on the line. Hey, Octavia, how you doing? Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Lendrell. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be talking to you today. We spoke a little bit earlier, and I got excited. I feel like we were like sisters. So I'm excited about this. So, as you said, I'm Octavia Howell. I am a business information security officer at Equifax. Currently, I'm also the founder of Augustus Redefined, which is an organization that helps lift, elevate, nurture, and support Black women in cybersecurity so that they can go into leadership positions within the field. I am a graduate of Spelman College, highly technical from a network security perspective, really studied quantum encryption, and cryptography is kind of my baby. It's something that I'm very passionate about. And perimeter security is something that I'm also passionate about. I currently sit in the GRC space. So kind of stepping away from the so technical world of security and kind of going into the governance and risk-based security, and also being a business enabler to ensure that, we can leverage security posturing in order to gain revenue and business drivers. So that's just a little bit about me.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit how you decided to go into cybersecurity and how'd you get, to where you are now?
Yeah, I don't know if it was decided to go into cybersecurity for me. It was one of those situations where I get bored really easily, like really easily. And so when I graduated from college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a computer science major, a mathematics minor. I knew that I did not think I wanted to be go into a PhD program, because you go to Spelman, you have to get a PhD. It's kind of like one of those things, like you have to get a master's, you have to get a PhD, or what are you doing with your life? So I didn't know if I wanted to do that. I knew I did not want to be a professor. And I did not know what else I would do with a PhD in computer science. So I decided to start interviewing. But I didn't know what I want to do. So I went into a rotational program. And when I went into a rotational program, I landed in voice over IP, because that was at the end of the rotation, that was the only thing that I found interesting at the time. And only because we were in the transition from moving from analog to digital.
Yes. Okay.
And it was like right at that, hey, you want to take these analog lines and like unplug these things, and now we're going to do everything by IP addresses, and you can actually learn subnetting. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I know binary. I could do binary with my hands tied. Like, let's do this. And that lasted for about 6 months until I was like, this all we doing? This is it. This is no more. So I talked to my manager, and she spoke to her counterparts, and they decided, to move me into network security. Okay. So I moved into network security. I didn't know anything about network security. All I knew was IP addresses, subnetting, and binary. That's all I knew. And so moved over there, learned really quickly. I loved it because it was something new that I had to learn all the time. You had to learn how, FTP was always changing, and are you going to be using native FTP or transitional FTP? And so it's like all these things that I was learning on a regular basis. So I got really excited. I will say, though, that I decided to be a cyber person because I didn't know that network security, and I came in network security and information security were two different things.
Yes.
So I used to try to explain to people that I wasn't in information security because all they do is they're paper pushers. And that's all they do. When I do real security work, I'm actually lifting, I'm like, no, like I protect, I'm like the hard shell, and they're like the soft stuff in the middle. Mm-hmm. But over time, as the internet has changed and more people are more knowledgeable, those two things started to kind of merge a little bit. And so some of my colleagues kind of laugh at me because they was like, oh, now you say you're in cyber. I was like, yeah, it's really a choice. It's one of those things where you have to wake up one morning and you're like, do I want to take on this extra responsibility of saying that I'm a cyber professional, and opposed to I just do firewalls and load balancers.
Right. You're a go-getter, sound like her. You're one of those women out there that like to, hey, look, what can I do? What can I do? So you're perfect for being a cybersecurity diva, a driven woman that's also inspirational, visionary, and has taken action in security. So yes, you are one of those. Yay!
I try.
I mean, that's one of the things about cybersecurity. There's so many different silos. So I know you're in a GRC silo kind of area. So what made you choose that silo?
Like I said, I wanted to be focused more in business. I did feel siloed. It's interesting that you actually use that word. Like I said, from the time I graduated from college into where the role that I actually enjoyed, I was in network security. So I went from being a network security associate to being a network security engineer to moving to another company, being a network security, program manager, to a network security system manager, to a network security engineer again, to the manager of network security, to the leader of and head of data network and network security. And I was like, all right, so I get it. I'm the network security person. But really, when you started thinking about processes and defense in depth and moving things forward, it really starts with the business, because the business was the people. When I was head of data and network security, it was the business that were stopping me from actually patching or doing upgrades. And it was a whole lot of people in between the perimeter and the business that I had to go through just to convince the business to let me secure them. Right. Okay. And so my pivot into GRC was really to get closer to the business. Okay. I need to be talking to them, because these people who are left out here doing system security, network security, trying to upgrade systems and patch and doing all this cadence, they can't do anything if the revenue generators don't understand their value and don't understand that the reason that they need to give them a little bit of downtime or to give them a little bit more money so that they can be resilient is so that they can keep their data safe, so that they can make more money. Right. So that's why I went into GRC. Okay. Have mentors played a big part in your career? Mentoring, I would say maybe the lack of mentoring, but I think that I never had targeted mentors. I think I've had stealth mentors where they'll say things, it's kind of like your auntie and the church lady, they don't want to say something, but they'll just whisper like, she shouldn't be doing that, right? Yeah. So I had, every now and then, depending on where I was, I had people who would laugh at me if I wanted to go into a particular field, or they would say, you really should consider maybe not quitting, or you maybe should consider kind of pivoting over here. Or, hey, I have this, this organization I want you to take a look at. Here, look at this. Or, hey, let me get on a phone call real quick with you. So up until recently, like this last year, I actually have mentors. Now I can actually label them as mentors. But I think before this year, I think what I had was maybe coaches and supporters and champions more than mentors. Okay, that makes sense. What has been your greatest challenge in your career? Figuring out myself is the greatest challenge. Like I said, as of lately, I have mentors now, but I didn't have mentors before. And so I fumbled a lot, right? It was a lot of things that I did that I probably shouldn't have done. There was a lot of attitude that I gave to a lot of people that maybe it was my fault and I need to do some self-reflection. The thing that probably held me back was the lack of self-awareness early on in my career, and really when I started kind of moving into leadership and what that means. So I think that's kind of like the biggest challenge. It's not so much anymore because I've done the work and I've tried to, be very cognizant of that. But it is something that I have to check myself, because when you know yourself, it's like, okay, well, let me kind of look at this from all sides and then see it like, okay, oh no, they deserve what they're going to get, no problem. But most time it's like, yeah, let me go back and kind of look at the bigger picture then maybe I need to pivot.
I've been there, so I do understand exactly what you're saying. What are some of your early career mistakes that you have made or you have seen made in cybersecurity people have made?
Probably a mistake is, I would say maybe leaving a position or a role because you made a mistake, right? So I have a mentor, he's actually a CEO of a large company in New York. And he said, you never leave a company or never leave a position when you're disgusted or when you're fed up. That is not the right time to leave or to do anything, right? That is a time where you stop and you pause and you ask a lot of questions, mainly of yourself. I think that's a mistake. Another mistake that I would say, specifically related to cyber, is assuming that you need certification to even start. I think I did not receive my first certification until I was 7 years into cyber. And when I received the certification, it was one of those situations where I was forced to get a certification, and it just made sense. And I wasn't really forced to get a certification. I was forced to take a training course because of what was coming next year. And I was going to be the person who needed to lead it. So it behooved me to get that training. And then they said, oh, just for $700 more, you can actually take the certification. I mean, it's an $8,000 course and then $700 to take the certification. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take that certification because I'm not going to learn this for nothing. Right.
Okay.
So I think you have to start in order to get somewhere. And the start is not always certification. The start may be you talking to people and getting a foot in the door and then actually pursuing that certification or master's degree or whatever. But that's not the start. Like if I see someone come across my desk that has 2 years experience with a CISSP, that's a red flag for me. That's not a, oh, you're great. You know, so I think that people need to kind of focus. That's another thing that I tell people as well when they come to me for advice on getting into cyber. I always send them a diagram of like different areas within the industry. And I tell them to focus on something. Just like when you're, going out for a job interview, you don't just throw your resume. Well, some people do. They throw their resume everywhere.
Yes.
Well, that's also a red flag, right? If you're not focused on, if I look at your resume and you have experience in incident management, GRC, threat intelligence. Well, what do you want to do? I want to do cyber. Okay, what does that mean? Explain to me what part of cyber drives you. What do you get excited about, right? And I think that those are mistakes that people make is because, and that's why a lot of people don't get jobs within the field because they are all over the place and their resume looks like they're all over the place. And I think that we need to be very focused. The only person that needs to be all over the place is the CISO.
Right. Hey, yes, you're totally right. God. Oh, so it seems like you've looked at a lot of resumes, right?
I have. And I'll tell you, every time I have to go through another round of resumes, I'm like, man, okay. I don't want to do it.
I get it. I'm a recruiter, so I understand exactly where you're coming from.
Bless you. I appreciate you.
Okay, so have you been able to reach the level that you are in this male-dominant career?
I don't think I'm where I want to be. And a lot of it, like I said, those self-reflections, but I think I'm on a good path to get to where I want to be. I don't look at the field as being a hindrance because there's a lot of men. I look at it as opportunities because there's not a lot of women.
Thank you. I love that. There is a lot of opportunity out there for women. And we actually think a little bit different. So it's actually security, I think, is made for women. Personally.
I think it makes, we're able to do a lot of things and be able to be proficient at a lot of things and look, I know what's going on the other side of the room, even though I'm focused over here.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's a skill.
Yes.
It's a skill, and I think it's innate to us, right? But I also think, I say there's a lot of opportunity because I don't want anyone listening to this to get this wrong. There's opportunity because we're women, but there is more than enough room at the table for all of us.
Thank you. And I love hearing that because that is so true. There's so much work need to be done out there, especially in cybersecurity, that there's a lot of room for everybody. It's a large table. So what advice would you give a woman or anybody in pursuing this career in security?
If you're afraid or you have any fear or you think you're not good enough, that means that you are. I was looking at LinkedIn and you know how it starts playing these videos. Mm-hmm. And there was a woman, her name was Christy something, but she said, you know, we as women, we downplay ourselves. And we only highlight on our resume what we're 100% proficient in. And then we get the job. We take a job that we are qualified twice as much. Like, so we're 2 levels above the job that we settled for in the first place. And we get to the job and then we walk in there like the queen has arrived because we know that we bring all these skill sets and all this wonderful, you know, everything to the table. And then we get upset when they start pecking at us and treating us like peasants. Well, that's because you took a job as a peasant when you really should have took a job as a queen. I will leave it there to make whatever conclusion anyone wants to make about that, but I'm just gonna let that rest.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So what is your biggest concerns about the state of cybersecurity today?
My biggest concern is that as a nation, we are siloed. I often look at like nation states and I look at, you know, a lot of the threat intelligence news that comes out now, and a lot of it's happening overseas. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in America, we say, oh, we got our stuff locked down, that's happening overseas. Well, what we forget is that we work in a capitalistic society that is international. As an international, if we work in business that's international, all it takes is for a threat actor to do something on one of our international resources. And then that's already, they pivoted into now our resources and our shared infrastructure, because a lot of things are moving to the cloud. A lot of it's moving to shared resources because we want to ensure that we are not being more complex from a corporate perspective. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that really concerns me is that we, within cybersecurity, I think as America as a whole, don't have a lot of concern about what's going on internationally. And it's not going to happen until it hits us. And I think that's the start of my fear. Right. There are so many unknowns because we feel as if we have everything over here taken care of because we know what's going on here. But a lot of the threat actors are, you know, not from here. Mm-hmm. And they're also attacking corporations and our partners that are international. So we need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. I'm gonna take you on a different path here. What's the latest show you binge watched on TV?
Lucifer.
Are you serious? I love that show.
Lucifer. I was so mad when it ended and I wanted to fight every writer and I'm like, I can't wait till January. Y'all tripping.
Yeah.
But yes, Lucifer.
Yeah, I watched it too. I love it. And I think my latest one was Sister. I don't know why I wanted to watch that whole series again. Sister. Yeah, I just think it's funny.
For Roger?
Yeah. Hey. yeah, I did. I had to watch it.
Hey.
What about the latest about your favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast is probably Beyond the Business Suit by Kylie Carr. You know, I met Kylie early last year, and she has a love and a passion for Black women, and to see Black women whole, completely, you know, everything that has happened, every part of us to be whole and to come to the business table and really be able to bring our entire selves as well as be effective. And she believes that if you're not effective and if you have baggage and hurt and what happened, you know, to sister girl over there, if you have all of that, then we can't show up as our full selves. So I think that's my favorite podcast, just because she really takes care of the whole person.
Yeah, I'm going to write that down personally. So let's get finished with this. During, COVID's going on right now, and how has COVID affected the cybersecurity world in your state?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of talking about those blind spots again. I think a lot of us are aware of what's going on and really in tune with, increased threats and more security incidents that's happening. Back about 5 years ago, when a security incident happened, it shook your entire world.
Right.
Now a security incident happens and you kind of look at the email or you go and check it out and you're like, oh, okay. All right, well, they had another breach. All right, next. And I think COVID and us being shut in has maybe silenced that awareness a little bit, instead of us really, because you're not in the office, you're not talking about it. Like, I remember the debates that happened when the Capital One incident happened, where the woman kind of used her privileges to elevate and actually to get into someone's S3 bucket. And they, I remember the debates about if that was really a breach or if that was a access issue. If it, like, you don't have those spirited debates. And so you're not pushed to do that extra research and to go check. Right. And to know the full story. So there's a lot of misinformation. Mm-hmm. And because there's a lot of misinformation, then we may not be able to kind of understand what's going on. So I think COVID has allowed some people to work more effective. And then for those who are not very close to it, it's allowed those things that they should be more aware of to go dead and silent a little bit.
That is scary. That is very scary. Well, I'm going to kind of go back just a couple of things. I know we're talking about education and certification. I know you said you got your certification after 7 years in, but you got your degree in computer science and kind of worked your way up. So when you're looking at all that, like I said, I talk to people all day, and I know one of the things is just getting in. If you would have to say education, certification, where do you is there a balance there for you, or what would your advice be to somebody that maybe, I talked to a girl that went into law. I don't know if you were able to see her. She was a lawyer, but she ended up being a cyber lawyer, and they didn't know there was field in cyber for lawyers. Yep. But where do you see that balance?
I really think the balance, I think what we're missing, there's not a balance, you're missing a piece. Mm-hmm. The piece that you're missing really is your network and talking to people, right? Mm-hmm. Because I can have a certification and not know anyone, and I send my resume into a black hole. Mm-hmm. I know someone who has a PhD in cybersecurity and multiple certifications. And if he didn't do the extra stuff that he does, every time that he's and he's former military and works in intelligence for the US. But if he didn't know who he knew and does the extra stuff that he does, he would be going into a black hole every time. Right. Because it's really about knowing people and they need to know what you can do. Right. And a lot of times within the cyber field, it's a people-driven industry. Yes. And so people hire for fit and personality more than they hire for skills.
That's totally true. Being a recruiter, I deal with that every day. So when I'm talking to a hiring manager, what are you looking for? I ask the hard questions of the hiring manager. So it makes a difference. And when I send a person over, kind of know what they're looking for. So last question, where do you see the biggest opportunity to improve cybersecurity?
The biggest opportunity is training, I guess. And it's not book training, but really having people, and I guess it goes to time, having people allocated that can coach and train on the job training those younger people that's coming in, those less experienced people. I just don't see that anymore. And I think that's a big miss. We expect people to come in with everything, knowing everything, ready to go day one. But I really, really think that we need to get to the point where we're able to really allocate resources for coaching and helping people really expand their potential and not just sit down and look at, packets going across the screen or, review policy documents. We really need to figure out within the whole industry, we really need to figure out how we can actually harness our talent. Right. Really need to figure that out.
I think part of and then you can continue with that. I think part of the continued training is communication, and cross-training people and communicating with people. Just because you're in this area, you need to be able to understand what's going on over here and that person, and to communicate that together.
Mhm.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really big area that we need to look at. Octavia, I really loved everything we talked about, and thank you so much for being a cybersecurity diva. Like I said, you are a driven, inspirational, visionary, and a woman that has taken action in security, and I love it. And thank you so much. Do you have anything else you would like to say?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I love what you're doing. Thank you for your vision. And really, really, really helping women that's in this industry and in this field understand their talent, what they have to offer, and then offering up to the world. Like your platform is amazing, and I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.